The smoke was thick, turning the ruined city into a ghostly battlefield. Fires burned inside shattered buildings, and the ground trembled under the sound of distant explosions. The air smelled of dust, blood, and metal. The human soldier, Captain Ryan Cole, moved carefully through the ruins, his weapon ready, his heart heavy. The war between humans and the alien race called the Valari had lasted too long. Both sides had lost too much. Ryan had seen things no soldier should ever see. Families running from airstrikes, soldiers crying for help that never came. But that day felt different. Something in the silence after the last blast made him stop and listen. Beneath the sound of cracking stones, he heard something faint, something soft. It wasn't gunfire, it wasn't a scream. It was a cry. He turned toward the sound, stepping over broken walls and burned machines. "Hello?" he called, his voice low but kind. There was no answer, only another small sob. He followed the sound until he reached a pile of fallen metal beams. Dust covered everything. He knelt down and pulled away a piece of twisted steel. Beneath it he saw movement, a small hand. Ryan froze. It wasn't human. The skin was a faint blue with silver veins glowing softly under the grime. Slowly he moved the debris aside and uncovered a little girl. She looked around 6 or 7 years old, dressed in torn royal fabrics covered with ash. Her large blue eyes were filled with tears and fear. When she saw Ryan's uniform, she flinched back and whispered, "Please, don't hurt me." Ryan lowered his weapon and knelt down. "Hey, it's okay," he said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." The girl's breathing was fast and shallow. She clutched a pendant around her neck, an elegant crystal with strange markings. It was cracked but still glowed faintly. Ryan recognized the symbol. It was the royal crest of the Valari Empire. His heart skipped a beat. This child, she's royalty. He took off his helmet so she could see his face. "You're safe now," he said. "What's your name?" She blinked at him, not understanding. "Nah, Lyra," she whispered finally, her voice trembling. "Lyra." Ryan nodded gently. "Lyra, I'm Ryan." Her small hand trembled as she reached toward him, then stopped. Her eyes darted to his human weapon. He put it aside, showing her his empty hands. "It's okay," he said again. "I promise." After a long pause, Lyra reached for him. He lifted her carefully out of the rubble. She was lighter than he expected, weak and shaking. He wrapped his jacket around her. Just then, his communicator buzzed in his ear. A voice from command spoke sharply. "Captain Cole, do you read?" Reports confirmed the Valari royal family fled the city. "Be on alert for hostiles. If you find any alien survivors, detain them immediately." Ryan looked at the girl in his arms. Her small face was pressed against his chest, her fingers gripping his uniform. He knew what command would say if he reported her. They'd take her away, use her as leverage, maybe worse. He hesitated. Duty said one thing. His heart said another. The communicator crackled again. "Captain Cole, respond. Any alien contact?" Ryan closed his eyes and switched it off. "Negative," he whispered to himself. "No contact." He looked down at Lyra. Her eyes were half closed from exhaustion. "Don't worry," he said quietly. "I'll get you out of here." As he carried her through the ruins, explosions echoed again in the distance. He ducked behind walls, avoiding patrol drones that scanned for life signs. Every time one flew close, he shielded Lyra with his body. At one point, a loud rumble shook the ground. A building collapsed behind them, sending dust through the air. Lyra whimpered, clutching his neck tightly. "It's okay," Ryan whispered, rubbing her back. "You're safe with me." He finally reached an old bunker half buried under rubble. It was a place soldiers had used long ago before the front line moved. Inside it was dark but dry. He laid Lyra on a cot, gave her water, and covered her with his jacket. She looked up at him, eyes full of confusion and fear. "What, you help me?" she asked in broken words. Ryan sat beside her. For a moment he didn't know how to answer. Then he said quietly, "Because you're just a child, and war should never take children." She stared at him for a long time before whispering, "You, not bad human." Ryan smiled faintly. "Guess not." Outside, thunder rolled, but it wasn't from the sky. It was from the next round of bombings. Ryan looked out the small window, his mind racing. He had just committed treason. He had saved the enemy's daughter. As the light from her pendant faintly glowed in the dark bunker, Ryan realized something else. This little girl was more than just a survivor. She was the key to ending the war, or starting a bigger one. And for the first time in years, Captain Ryan Cole felt something new in his chest. Hope. The bunker was quiet. except for the soft hum of old machinery still running after decades. Dust floated in the dim light that slipped through the cracks above. Captain Ryan Cole sat on a rusted chair, his helmet beside him, while the small alien girl, Lyra, slept on a cot wrapped in his military jacket. Her breathing was calm now. For the first time since the explosion, she wasn't crying. Ryan leaned his head back against the wall, tired but restless. His mind raced with the same thought. What have I done? He had lied to his command. He had hidden an alien, an enemy. Worse, she wasn't just any alien. She was a child from the Valari royal family. If they found her, they'd take her away. If they found him with her, he'd be court-martialed or worse. But every time he looked at her small, peaceful face, he knew he couldn't hand her over. He had seen too many innocent lives lost already. He wasn't going to let hers be another number. A sudden noise made him tense. He grabbed his weapon and aimed at the door, but it was only the wind blowing dust and loose metal. He sighed, lowering the gun. Still, he knew he couldn't stay here long. Patrols scanned the city ruins daily. The bunker wasn't safe forever. After some time, Lyra woke up. She blinked slowly, her glowing blue eyes adjusting to the dim light. When she saw Ryan, she flinched again, pulling the blanket around herself. "It's okay," Ryan said softly. "You're safe here." She stared at him, confused, then pointed at his uniform. "You soldier?" "Yes," he said. "But not the kind who hurts children." She tilted her head, trying to understand. Ryan smiled faintly and handed her a canteen. "Water," he said. "Drink." Lyra took it carefully, watching him the whole time. When she tasted it, her expression softened, almost like she hadn't had clean water in days. Ryan opened a ration pack and offered her half of his food. She hesitated, then took it with small hands. As she ate, she whispered something in her language, a short phrase that sounded like a thank you. Ryan sat down beside her. "Lyra," he said, repeating her name gently. "Where's your home?" She looked down, then pointed upward through the cracked ceiling toward the sky. "Home, far stars," she said slowly. "Big palace, Mama." "Queen?" Her voice trembled. "Mama lost." "Boom! Fire! I run!" Ryan felt a sharp pain in his chest. He realized she had been running during the airstrikes. She had probably watched her guards die, her home destroyed. Alone and terrified, she had hidden under rubble until he found her. He reached into his pocket and took out the small crystal pendant she had dropped earlier. It was cracked but still glowing faintly. "Yours?" he asked, her eyes widened. She nodded quickly. "Mama's gift," she whispered. "Keep safe." He handed it back and she held it close to her chest as if it was the last piece of her mother she had left. Outside, thunder rumbled again, but this time it was from distant engines. Ryan peeked through a gap in the wall and saw drones flying in formation, scanning the ruins below. He ducked down fast, pulling the tarp over the window. Lyra looked scared. "They bad?" she asked softly. Ryan nodded. "They're looking for us," she frowned, confused. "Us? You?" "Human. Me? Alien." Ryan smiled sadly. "Yeah, but I guess we're both in trouble now." He sat down and rubbed his tired eyes. Lyra crawled closer, sitting beside him. For a long time, neither spoke. The silence was heavy, filled only by the sound of machines outside. Then she said something unexpected. "Rai," she whispered. He looked at her. "What did you say?" She smiled shyly. "Rai means protector. You..." "Rai." Ryan's heart softened. "Protector, huh?" he said quietly. "I'll take that." He didn't know it yet, but that one word, Rai, would become a name whispered through 2 galaxies one day. Hours passed, and Ryan made a small plan. He found an old transport map on the wall, marking a path that led to an abandoned outpost near the hills. If they could reach it, he could signal an old friend who might help them escape unnoticed. He looked at Lyra, who was now drawing small patterns on the dusty floor with her fingers. She looked so innocent, so out of place in a world full of war. Ryan took a deep breath. "We move at night," he said quietly. "You stay close to me, okay?" She nodded and smiled faintly, whispering, "Okay, Rai." As night fell, Ryan packed his gear and wrapped Lyra in a dark cloak he found in the corner. The stars were faint through the smoke, but they gave him just enough light to see the path. He carried her on his back as they stepped out of the bunker and into the cold air. Behind them, the city burned. Ahead, the unknown waited. Ryan didn't know if they'd make it, but as long as she was with him, he had a reason to keep going. Somewhere far away, in a grand alien palace hidden among the stars, A mother looked up at the same night sky and whispered her daughter's name, Lyra, and for the first time in days the queen of the Valari felt a spark of hope in her heart. Night covered the city ruins in thick smoke and cold mist. The stars above were faint, blurred by the haze of war. Captain Ryan Cole moved quietly between collapsed walls, carrying Lyra on his back, her small arms wrapped around his neck. Every step echoed too loudly in his ears. He kept looking over his shoulder, expecting drones or soldiers to appear any second. The bunker had been safe for one night, but Ryan knew the search teams would sweep through the ruins soon. He had to move before sunrise. Lyra whispered softly in his ear. Rye, cold. He stopped behind a burnt wall and adjusted the cloak around her. I know, he whispered. We'll find a warm place soon. As they walked, Ryan checked his old wrist scanner. The screen flickered with weak signals. Patrols were close. He cursed under his breath and turned down a narrow alley where collapsed alien towers leaned like broken teeth. His training told him to go back to base and report, but his heart told him something different. Behind them, the sky flashed. Searchlights swept over the ruins. Ryan ducked down and pressed himself against the wall. Lyra held her breath, eyes wide and glowing faintly in the dark. The beam passed, then moved away. Ryan sighed in relief. That was close, he whispered, but the danger was far from over. A sudden metallic whine echoed in the distance. Drones. Dozens of them. They flew low, their scanners glowing red as they swept the ground. Ryan grabbed Lyra's hand. Run, he said, pulling her into a half-collapsed subway tunnel. Inside, the darkness swallowed them. The sound of dripping water mixed with the distant hum of engines. They ran through the tunnel, their footsteps splashing in the shallow water. Behind them, drones buzzed like angry hornets. Ryan ducked into a service room and slammed the door quietly. He held Lyra close and whispered, Don't make a sound. The red light from the drones shone through cracks in the wall. Ryan aimed his weapon, ready to fight if they found him. But after a few tense minutes, the sound faded. The drones moved on. Lyra finally whispered, Rye. They bad men? Ryan nodded slightly. Yes, they'd hurt you to win the war. Her little brow furrowed in confusion. Why fight? Ryan paused. He didn't know how to explain hate and politics to a child. He looked at her and said softly, Because sometimes people forget what really matters. She looked at him, puzzled. What matters? Ryan smiled faintly. Life. You. Peace. She didn't fully understand, but she smiled back anyway. After resting for a few minutes, Ryan decided they couldn't stay underground for long. The tunnel led to an old industrial zone, and if they made it through, there was a chance to reach the hills beyond the city. As they walked again, Lyra began to hum quietly. Her voice was soft and strange, almost like music made of light. It echoed beautifully against the tunnel walls. Ryan stopped and listened. That's beautiful, he said. What song is that? She looked shy. Mama sing when scared. He felt a lump in his throat. Then keep singing, he whispered. Maybe she'll hear you. Up above, the night sky glowed with distant fires. Unknown to Ryan, alien scouts had also begun searching for the lost princess. Two great armies now moved toward the same goal, one to save her and one to capture her. Hours later, Ryan and Lyra finally reached the edge of the city. From a hilltop, they could see what remained of the battlefield: smoke, flashes of explosions, and broken ships lying like bones. Lyra looked tired, but still alert. Rye, she said softly, tugging his sleeve. Someone... There. Ryan raised his binoculars and froze. A figure was moving through the wreckage, another human soldier. His old comrade, Lieutenant Harris. Ryan's heart sank. Harris was loyal to the command, not to him. If Harris saw Lyra, everything would fall apart. Stay down, he whispered quickly, hiding Lyra behind a large rock. He crouched low, watching Harris move closer. Harris scanned the area with a flashlight, then stopped near the tunnel entrance. He spoke into his radio. Command, I found fresh tracks, small footprints, and one human. Possibly Captain Cole. Ryan's pulse quickened. He pulled Lyra's hand and whispered, We have to go now. They slipped down the other side of the hill, keeping low. But Harris had already seen the movement. Cole! He shouted. Stop. Don't make this worse. Ryan didn't stop. He ran faster, Lyra stumbling beside him. The sound of gunfire echoed. bullets hitting the ground near their feet. Ryan turned and fired one shot into the air. Not to kill, but to scare. Harris ducked, shouting into his radio again. Cole's gone rogue. He's protecting an alien child. The words hit Ryan like thunder. There was no going back now. He picked Lyra up and ran into the forest beyond the ruins. The trees swallowed them as the alarms blared behind him. Lyra clung to him, whispering in fear. "Rye, bad men come?" Ryan nodded, breathing hard. "Yes, they're coming. But I'll keep you safe. I promise." As the forest grew darker, Lyra's pendant began to glow faintly against his chest. Far across the galaxy in her mother's palace, the Queen of the Valari felt the same light pulse in her heart, like a signal calling her to her lost child. And so began the chase that would change two worlds forever. Far beyond the smoke-filled skies of the ruined planet, in the heart of the Valari Empire, a palace of silver and crystal floated among the stars. Its towers shimmered with soft blue light, glowing like frozen tears in the endless night. But inside there was no joy, only silence and sorrow. On the highest balcony stood Queen Sarathis, ruler of the Valari, her long silver robes flowing like liquid starlight. She stared out at the stars, her eyes dim with exhaustion. Her daughter, Princess Lyra, had been missing for over a week. The War Council told her the child was gone, killed during the human bombardment, but Sarathis refused to believe it. A mother's heart knew when her child still breathed. Behind her, the great doors opened. Lord Verrill, her most trusted advisor, bowed deeply. "Your Majesty," he said softly, "the search fleets have returned. We found no survivors from the city. The human army has occupied the ruins." Sarathis did not turn around. "No survivors?" she whispered. Her voice trembled, though she tried to hide it. Verrill lowered his head. "We will continue to search, but—" "Enough," she said sharply, her tone cutting like glass. Then more quietly she added, "You would not understand. I feel her. My Lyra is alive," the advisor sighed. "Your Majesty, I fear this hope may cloud your judgment. The humans," she turned then, her eyes fierce with power. "The humans killed my people, burned our cities, and destroyed my world. Yet you think I would imagine my child's heartbeat?" Verrill fell silent. The Queen walked to the center of the room where a golden orb rested, a royal relic that could trace the energy of bloodlines. She placed her hand on it. The orb glowed weakly. Faint waves of energy pulsed within it, soft, fragile, but alive. "There," she whispered. "Do you see? She lives." Verrill's eyes widened. That cannot be. The signal is faint, but—" "She is alive," the Queen repeated, tears filling her eyes. "And she is afraid." For the first time in years, the mighty ruler of the Valari sank to her knees. Her crown slipped slightly as she pressed her hand to her chest. "My child calls to me," she said softly, "and I will find her, even if I must burn through 1,000 human worlds to do it." But deep down, another feeling stirred within her. Something new, something strange. When she touched the energy pulse, she felt another presence near her daughter's aura. It was not Valari. It was human. Yet it wasn't dark or cruel, it was warm, like a shield. Someone was protecting Lyra. She whispered to herself, "A human?" The thought confused her. Could it be possible? Humans were destroyers, not saviors. Yet the pulse told her otherwise. Her daughter was not alone, and the energy that surrounded her was filled with care. The Queen stood tall again. "Prepare a royal scout fleet," she commanded. "We search the occupied zones at dawn." Verrill hesitated. "Your Majesty, if you cross the treaty line, it could start another battle." Sarathis looked at him with a quiet fury. "Let them call it what they wish. I call it a mother's right." Meanwhile, on the human outpost near the edge of the same planet, reports poured into the communication center. Lieutenant Harris's message had reached command. "Captain Ryan Cole has gone rogue. He is protecting a Valari child." Across the lines, both armies stirred. Humans prepared to hunt one of their own, while the aliens prepared to invade to find a lost princess. But Queen Sarathis did not seek war. She sought her daughter. As her fleet powered up, hundreds of sleek, curved ships emerged from the dark. Their engines glowed blue like the Queen's tears. The great flagship, Illyria's Heart, led the way, its hull carved with the royal sigil. Before departure, the Queen entered her private chamber where her daughter's holographic image floated above a pool of light. It was the last photo taken before the attack, a laughing child holding a flower. her eyes bright and full of life. Sarathis touched the image gently. "Lyra, my light," she whispered. "Hold on." "I am coming." Outside, the ships roared to life, shaking the palace walls. The queen stepped into her command bridge, her gaze cold and full of purpose. "Set course for the human-occupied ruins. If we find resistance, do not fire unless I command it." Her generals looked confused. "Your Majesty, no retaliation." She shook her head slowly. "Not until I know who the human is who stands beside my daughter." As the fleet disappeared into hyperspace, the stars streaked into silver lines behind them. Far below in the forest where Ryan and Lyra hid, the little girl suddenly woke. She looked at the sky through the leaves, her pendant glowing brighter than ever. "Mama," she whispered softly. Ryan stirred awake beside her. "Bad dream?" he asked gently. Lyra smiled faintly. "No, Mama coming," Ryan frowned. "Coming, what do you mean?" She pointed upward. "Mama, find me." Ryan followed her gaze toward the distant stars, unaware that a royal fleet was already racing across the galaxy, guided by a mother's grief and a bond stronger than war. The night air was still, but the universe itself was beginning to move. The morning sun barely touched the forest floor. Mist hung between the tall silver-leaf trees, and every sound, every step, seemed too loud in the quiet air. Captain Ryan Cole walked carefully, scanning the area with his rifle. Lyra followed close behind, clutching his sleeve like she was afraid to lose him in the fog. They had been running for days, sleeping in caves, eating ration scraps, hiding from patrols. Ryan's body ached, his armor was scratched and muddy, and his eyes were red from lack of rest. But he kept moving, for Lyra's sake. "Rye," she whispered, "you tired?" He smiled weakly. "I'll rest when you're safe." They stopped beside a stream and Ryan helped her drink. The cold water sparkled around her small hands. For a brief moment it felt peaceful, but peace never lasted long in war. A low humming sound broke the silence. Ryan froze. He knew that sound. It was a human drone close by and scanning. "Lyra," he said quietly, "hide behind those rocks. Don't move, no matter what happens." She obeyed instantly, crawling behind a large stone as Ryan aimed his rifle toward the trees. The sound grew louder. The drone appeared overhead, its red scanner sweeping across the ground. Ryan shot once. The bullet hit its sensor, sending it crashing down in a shower of sparks. He turned to grab Lyra, but too late. Voices shouted from behind. "There, Captain Cole." "Don't move!" Human soldiers emerged from the mist, rifles raised. At the front stood Lieutenant Harris, his face cold and angry. "Ryan," Harris shouted, "drop your weapon. It's over." Ryan held his gun for a moment, then slowly lowered it. "Listen to me, Harris," he said. "She's just a child." "Don't hurt her," Harris frowned. "A child? She's an alien princess, Ryan. The council says she's worth more than 10 star systems. You realize what you've done?" Ryan clenched his jaw. "I saved her life. You betrayed your own people," Harris barked. "You disobeyed orders, aided the enemy, and endangered your unit." "Hand her over!" Ryan didn't answer. His eyes darted toward the rock where Lyra hid. Harris noticed the glance. "Bring her out!" he ordered. 2 soldiers moved forward. Lyra stepped out slowly, shaking, clutching her broken pendant. When she saw Ryan being held by soldiers, she screamed, "Rye!" "No." Harris raised his weapon toward her. "Don't move, alien." Ryan broke free from one guard and threw himself in front of her. "Don't you dare!" he shouted. "She's under my protection." The other soldiers wrestled him down, pinning him to the ground. Lyra cried out as one of them grabbed her roughly by the arm. "Rye!" she screamed, tears falling down her pale blue cheeks. "Take them both," Harris ordered. "Command wants the girl alive and Cole in chains." They dragged Ryan through the mud, his armor scraping against stones. His wrists were tied, his head pounding. He could still hear Lyra crying behind him. "Please, Rye. Don't leave me." Her voice broke his heart. "It's okay, Lyra," he called. "Don't be afraid." But even as he said it, he knew fear had already won. Hours later, they reached the human base, a massive steel fortress surrounded by barbed fences and tall watchtowers. Ryan was thrown into a cold metal cell. Lyra was taken elsewhere. He sat on the floor, breathing heavily, hands bleeding from the restraints. The cell lights flickered dimly. For the first time, Ryan felt the full weight of his decision. He had saved her, but now they were both prisoners. Outside, the base buzzed with activity. Commanders shouted orders. The rumor of the traitor soldier and alien princess spread like wildfire. Some soldiers called Ryan a fool. Others called him brave. But none dared to free him. In another part of the base, Lyra sat in a glass containment room. Scientists in white suits scanned her, whispering to each other about DNA samples and royal symbols. She didn't understand their words, but she understood their cold eyes. She hugged her pendant tight and whispered, "Rye will come." Meanwhile, in his cell, Ryan tried to think of a way out. He knew time was running out. The humans would soon contact the council, and once politics got involved, Mercy would vanish. Then suddenly the base alarms blared. Red lights flashed across the halls. The loudspeakers shouted, "Unidentified ships detected entering atmosphere. All units to defense positions." Ryan's eyes widened. "No," he whispered. "She's here." He stood and ran to the barred window. In the distant sky, through smoke and clouds, massive alien ships descended, glowing blue like falling stars. The Valari Royal Fleet had arrived. The guards shouted orders, scrambling to man the defense cannons. Ryan pressed his hands against the bars, his heart pounding. "She came for her daughter," he whispered. Lyra looked up from her cell window at the same time, her eyes wide with tears and joy. She placed her tiny hand against the glass and whispered one word that echoed in both hearts. "Mama." The sky above turned to light as the alien fleet hovered silently, their weapons idle but their presence commanding. The war that had torn two worlds apart was about to change forever, because one mother had come not to destroy, but to reclaim her child. And the human who had dared to save her. The sky above the human base turned silver blue as the first alien ships broke through the clouds. Their engines roared like thunder, shaking the ground. Every soldier stopped what they were doing and looked up in shock. The massive Valari Royal Fleet hovered above, hundreds of ships glowing with power but not firing a single shot. Inside his cell, Captain Ryan Cole watched through the narrow window, his heart racing. The air vibrated with energy, but he felt no fear, only awe. He knew exactly who had come. "She's here," he whispered. "The Queen." Sirens blared across the base. Human commanders shouted into their radios, "All defense systems online. Shields up! Prepare for engagement." But no attack came. The alien ships stayed motionless, forming a circle in the clouds like silent guardians. A single, enormous flagship descended slowly from the center of the fleet, its hull shimmering with symbols that pulsed like a heartbeat. Every human soldier froze as the ship stopped just above the base. A bright column of blue light shot down from its belly, forming a landing platform that touched the ground like a pillar of dawn. From that light stepped Queen Serathis of the Valari. She was tall, elegant and powerful, her silver skin glowing softly, her long robes flowing like waves of starlight. Her eyes, though beautiful, carried the weight of 1,000 sorrows. Around her stood royal guards in crystalline armor. Holding no weapons, only staffs of light, she raised her hand, and her voice carried through the air without any amplifier, calm and clear. "Humans," she said, "I have not come to wage war. I have come for my daughter." The soldiers stared, uncertain whether to aim or bow. The human general, General Tarkin, stepped forward. His voice was firm but nervous. "Your Majesty, this is human territory. You have violated the truce. If you do not withdraw—" "Do not threaten me, General," the Queen interrupted, her tone cold but steady. "I have lost too much to listen to more war talk." The general hesitated. The Queen looked past him toward the detention area. Her eyes glowed faintly as she reached out with her mind. "Lyra," she whispered softly, "my light. I'm here." In the glass containment room, Lyra suddenly gasped and looked toward the window. Her pendant shone brightly, matching the glow in her mother's eyes. "Mama!" she cried. The guards holding her stepped back, startled. The child's voice carried through the halls, echoing with raw emotion. Ryan heard it too. He grabbed the bars of his cell and shouted, "She's in there! Don't hurt her!" Outside, the Queen closed her eyes for a brief moment, and then the glass of Lyra's cell shattered without a sound. The air shimmered with energy as the doors unlocked themselves one by one, as if obeying her will. Lyra ran through the hallways barefoot, tears streaming down her face. Soldiers tried to stop her but froze in place as the Queen's aura pushed them gently aside. The little girl burst out of the building and into the open field where her mother stood. "Mom! I'm back! He saved me!" she cried, running straight into the Queen's arms. Queen Sarathis fell to her knees and embraced her daughter tightly. For a long moment, the entire base went silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. Soldiers, human and alien alike, watched the reunion with tears in their eyes. "My child," the Queen whispered, her voice breaking. "I searched every world for you." Lyra smiled through tears. "Rai, help me. Rai, protect me." The Queen frowned slightly. "Rai?" Lyra turned and pointed toward the prison block. "Human." "Rai." The Queen looked up, her gaze piercing the metal walls. "The human who saved you," she murmured. "Bring him to me." Within minutes, guards dragged Ryan from his cell and into the open field. He stumbled to his knees, bruised and weak, his wrists still bound. The Queen looked down at him, her expression unreadable. "You risked your life for my daughter," she said softly. Ryan met her eyes. "Any soldier with a heart would have done the same." "Many soldiers have hearts," she replied, "but few listen to them." Lyra ran to him, holding his hand. "Rai," she said proudly, "Mama good. No fight now." The Queen smiled faintly, touching her daughter's hair. "No, my light. No more fighting." She turned to the human general, her voice calm but filled with power. "Release this man. From this day, he is under my protection. Any harm to him will be considered harm to the royal family." General Tarkin stood speechless. You can't just—" "I just did," she said simply. The soldiers lowered their weapons. The Queen's guards stepped back. The battlefield, once soaked in hatred, now shimmered with peace. The Queen extended her hand to Ryan. "You saved my daughter," she said. "Tell your people the war is over. Let this be the beginning of something better." Ryan hesitated, then took her hand. The two stood side by side, human and alien, soldier and Queen, beneath the silent gaze of two great armies. Above them, the fleet lights dimmed to a soft glow, like stars bowing in respect. And in that moment, for the first time in centuries, peace truly felt possible. The sky above the human base was still glowing from the light of the alien fleet, but the air was quiet now. No gunfire, no shouting, no panic. Just silence and the soft hum of engines resting in the clouds. Soldiers on both sides stood still, unsure if what they were seeing was real. The Valari Queen, tall and radiant, stood beside Captain Ryan Cole, the human soldier who had risked everything for her daughter. The little Princess Lyra clung to Ryan's arm, smiling through her tears. "See, Mama? No more war," she said softly. Her small voice carried across the open field like a fragile song. The Queen looked at her child, then at Ryan. "No more war," she repeated quietly, her words like an oath to the stars themselves. General Tarkin stepped forward, his face pale and uncertain. "Your Majesty," he began carefully, "our orders were to—" "Your orders are meaningless now," the Queen interrupted gently but firmly. "The child you sought to capture is my daughter, and this man," she looked at Ryan, "has done what no commander, no politician, no king could do. He remembered what mercy is." Ryan stood straight, his uniform torn and dirty, but his eyes steady. "We've both lost too much," he said softly. "Maybe it's time someone stopped counting losses and started saving what's left." The Queen nodded. "Agreed." The two of them stood before both armies, alien and human, and for the first time in years, there was no hatred in the air, only silence filled with hope. Lyra stepped forward, holding her glowing pendant high. Its light spread across the field, casting gentle reflections on helmets and armor. "Mama says light is stronger than fire," she said proudly. "Light can heal." Her words were innocent, but something about them reached everyone's heart. A few human soldiers lowered their weapons. Others followed. The Valari guards did the same, their crystalline staffs dimming as a sign of peace. General Tarkin exhaled slowly and turned to his troops. "Stand down," he ordered. "That's an order." The Queen raised her hand to her guards. "Valari warriors, return to formation. No harm will come to these humans." And just like that, the war that had destroyed planets began to end, with one command, one moment, one small act of compassion. Ryan looked around, amazed. The sound of weapons locking down, the lowering of shields, it was like hearing peace being born. Lyra tugged his sleeve. "Rai," she whispered, "you come with us?" Ryan smiled sadly. "I can't, Lyra. This is your world now." The Queen stepped closer. "He is right, my light. His place is among his people, but he will always be remembered among mine. She turned to Ryan. The Valari Empire will honor you. Name your wish, freedom, reward, rank, and it will be yours. Ryan looked at the sky, then back at her. I don't want reward, Your Majesty. Just promise me one thing. The Queen tilted her head. What is it? That this peace lasts, he said simply. That no one, human or alien, loses their child again because of hate. The Queen's expression softened. You have my word. She extended her hand once more, not as a ruler, but as an equal. Ryan shook it firmly. Around them, cameras from both sides began to record the moment, the handshake that ended a war. As the alien fleet began to rise back into the sky, the Queen and Lyra stood at the open ramp of the flagship. Lyra waved at Ryan from the platform, shouting, Bye, Rye. Don't forget me. Ryan smiled, saluting her. Never, he said softly. The Queen placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. He will not forget, nor will our people. The great ship rose slowly, its lights shining over the battlefield like a sunrise. Soldiers shielded their eyes as the alien fleet ascended into the clouds, leaving only trails of silver mist behind. When the sky cleared, Ryan was left standing alone in the middle of the field. The silence felt heavy, but it wasn't the silence of fear anymore. It was peace. General Tarkin walked up beside him, his voice quiet. You realize what you just did, Captain? Ryan smiled faintly.
Yeah, he said.
I disobeyed every order and saved the galaxy. The general chuckled, shaking his head. You're a damn fool, Cole. Ryan looked up at the fading clouds. Maybe, but sometimes fools change worlds. Later that night, as the camp settled and soldiers packed away their weapons, Ryan sat alone beneath the stars. The pendant Lyra had left behind, a small piece of her broken crystal, lay in his palm. It glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. He closed his fingers around it and whispered, Sleep safe, kid. Far away aboard the Queen's flagship, Lyra looked at her own half of the pendant, glowing in sync with his. Mama, she whispered, smiling softly. Rye happy now? The Queen looked down at her daughter and smiled. Yes, my light. He's finally home. Outside their window, the stars seemed brighter, the universe calmer, and across two worlds, once divided by war, a new story began, one written not in blood, but in understanding. Humanity had proved once again that compassion was their greatest weapon, and this time the galaxy would never forget it.